I think one of my driving forces in building a church is creating a home, because I've had to learn how to be at home. I've been in great situations where people said, welcome home, you're welcome here now, your son here, you know? But I didn't know how to be a son. I didn't know how to be a home. And I think a lot of times we can carry stuff and we go like, I can manage it. But yeah, maybe you can, but it's also hindering you from actually stepping into what you could have and what you could be and what God has for you.
Hey everybody, I'm Todd Mullins. Welcome to Made for More, a podcast all about helping you live the life you were made for. This is a space where we talk about faith that works and leadership that lasts, and how to bring both of those into the everyday moments that shape our lives. My goal is to give you perspective so you can win where it matters most. And I hope you walk away from this conversation a little more encouraged and a little more equipped for all God has called you to do and who He's called you to be. Enjoy today's episode. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to Made for More podcast. I'm Todd Mullins. Glad to have you here. I've got my good friend and a longtime friend, Andreas Nielsen, all the way from Stockholm, Sweden, with us today.
Yeah,
Andreas,
so good to be here. Thank you so much.
You're
I love this place.
Thawing out in South Florida a little bit, getting warm.
Yep. Second home. Been for a long time.
You have been. And we go way, way back, like almost 30 years back, right? Yeah, 30 years. Yeah.
31. Wow.
You are now a husband, a father, a pastor, leading and pastoring one of the greatest churches in all of Europe right now, one of the biggest churches in Europe as well, across all of Sweden, Hillsong Sweden. And but most people probably don't know that you started out as an intern.
I did.
Here at Christ Fellowship. Well, you probably had a few jobs before that, but
well, ministry-wise, I did. It was the best time of my life. Being an intern is awesome. It's all fun, no responsibility. You break things. You get chased around.
Pay for it. Yeah.
You learn stuff. Like being a youth pastor.
Yeah, you wandered. You were here in Florida, South Florida, selling cars. I think I heard.
Yeah, just life was just. It was. I was homeless without being physically homeless. I was just looking. I was on the run.
You're a little lost.
I bumped into this place, or I believe God led me to this place.
And we were a smaller church at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember you hung out, you came to the young adults service, you came to church, you had long hair, a couple earrings, and you're like, hey, can I be an intern? And I was like, what does that mean? And you're like, I work for free. I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sign
I
up,
actually
man.
learned that word. I didn't know. I didn't speak a lot of English when I came.
Yeah.
And this church is wonderful. I mean, I think dress code was a little bit different back then.
Yeah.
I didn't see a lot of guys with long hair and earrings and ripped chains.
Yeah.
But I didn't have those things either after a few weeks.
I think Coach Mullins might have ripped an earring out at one time. I don't know.
I needed it. Hey, you said, are you going to take those earrings out or am I going to rip them out?
I remember when you started preaching to the young adults or the students, and you learned most of your English from movies, right?
I did. Action movies, yeah.
Action movies.
I have a very like limited taste of movies. I like action movies. I like a lot of action, not a lot of conversation.
Yeah.
So I had to drop out of school pretty early after ninth grade. Came from a broken home, had to start working. So I didn't do well in school. Didn't speak much English. So I learned my English from watching American action movies like Sylvester Stallone, Steven Seagal, and these stuff, and reading the Swedish subtitles and just pairing them together. So apparently I learned a whole lot of bad words.
Yeah, you learned a lot of
I didn't know they were bad.
Slang, cuss words, kind of cuss words, and you would get up and just say them like it was no big deal. And inside I was dying. I'm like, what is he doing right now, right? So,
and you guys would say, hey, you don't want to use that word. And I go, which one? And they were all the same.
It was great. It was great to be a part of your journey, and then to see you go back home to Sweden, plant a church, get involved in church, plant a church, and then now that church has become one of the leading churches, just helping people find Jesus over in a country that needs Jesus so much.
Yeah, definitely. I never wanted to plant a church. I'd be happy to lead worship or come in and be a weekend preacher. And, when we were in Sweden, we had opportunities. My wife and I, we were married, just got married, and to move back to America or to Australia or to London and just be part of a big church. And somehow we just felt like our hearts got stuck in Stockholm.
Yeah.
And we never thought of it as planting a church. And then we were given the opportunity or the assignment to do it, and we just did it. And we actually found our passion in it. I feel like I'm born for it. I love it. I'm not saying I'm great at it, but it is my life's passion. And I found it in obedience. And we're turning on, we'll be 20 years this year.
Come on. That's so great.
20 years,
and it's
Still here.
Across how many cities in Sweden?
6 different cities. So it's about a 6-hour drive from our further south campus to Stockholm campus. Yeah.
And I've been over there many times, preached
so good
with you and talked to your leadership team, just doing such a great work for God. But talk to me about how before that great work from God happened, what did God have to do in you before he could work through you? What was the work that when you look back and go, man, God had to do this in me so that the more that I'm living for could actually flow through me?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's an ongoing process. Turned 50 last year, and I realized that I think we carry stuff, and I think God is gracious that he doesn't deal with all of it at once. I think he actually waits to deal with some stuff until he's been able to take you to a place where you would know how to deal with it.
Okay.
So I'm discovering some of the stuff on my journey that, I didn't know I still carry that. I thought I was like bigger than that or outgrown that. But I think one of the big things that I really had to deal with, and at times maybe still have to, you can deal with something and then it can just pop up and you're like, no, you don't belong here anymore, stay out. I grew up in this little city, 8,000 people, 200,000 cows, backwoods, I'm a through country boy. And my grandfather was the pastor of this church that I grew up in, a little church, and my dad was the, choir director and all that. And my dad battled with alcoholism, and he left us on Christmas Day when I was 12. And that made me, it made me kind of homeless because I didn't really fit anywhere. A young boy really needs a dad. And, today I have a great relationship with my dad after 35 years of alcoholism. He came around back to the Lord. But I carried that sense of that I don't really fit anywhere. You become a kind of a chameleon, what I need to be to fit here.
Yeah.
They say that, we work with that quite a bit. Kids who are in the foster program, if they get bounced around a lot, they develop this mentality as a chameleon, like, what do I have to do to fit here? What do I have to do to get to stay here? So I had this thing that I didn't really fit anywhere, and I realized later on that it wasn't because of environment, like you guys here. It changed my life. This was like 5 years of healing for me.
Wow.
And you guys open not only a work opportunity, but your lives, your hearts. You and Pastor Julia and Julie and Coach
James
and Donna and James and Lisa and so many. Like everybody. It was, the welcome mat was rolled wide open. But I didn't really know how to walk in. I didn't know how to be at home. So I think one of my driving forces in building a church is creating a home, because I've had to learn how to be at home. I've been in great situations where people said, welcome home, you're welcome here now, your son here, but I didn't know how to be a son. I didn't know how to be a home. And I think a lot of times we can carry stuff and we go like, I can manage it. But yeah, maybe you can, but it's also hindering you from actually stepping into what you could have and what you could be and what God has for you. So I think starting church, I really had because I didn't want to stay in Sweden. If I had, my choice, I'd probably live in America, but I'm called and I love it. And I'm supposed to be there. But actually staying there and planting a church felt like I stayed in a place that in the beginning wasn't home. I didn't feel like I belonged there. And now I realize that I wasn't at home anywhere. So God had to work in my soul, in my emotions, even in my marriage in the beginning. I didn't know how to be home in it, Like I loved it, it was great, but I didn't really know how to be home because I never learned those skills. So I feel like God has really helped me with that, and being surrounded with great friends like yourself has really taught me. And I think a lot of things we need to relearn. And I watched and today, I love coming home to my house and to our church, and just coming here, it feels like home. And I realized I can be at home in so many places, because I'm at home inside. So I felt like God really had to work with me on that.
Yeah. I'm sure that like a sense of loss in your life with your dad leaving when you were 12 has been something you've had to work through. Can you talk to that just a little bit? Because I think all of us deal with loss. We have loss in relationships. We have loss in dreams that maybe we thought would be different. Life would be different by now. By now I thought I would have, or just maybe even prayers that didn't come the way we thought. So we have this sense of, man, what do you do with that lostness, that feeling of, man, it didn't work out? How do we deal with that?
It's a great question. And I think it's something that we don't talk enough about. I think everybody carry different degrees of loss. And I think loss is it's something that affects you more than you think if you don't recognize it and deal with it and talk about it. Obviously, my dad leaving early, Christmas Day, so it's a pretty bad day to leave, So I remember, and I just say I love my mom, love my dad. We had a great relationship now. God has done such a miracle with my family. We can talk about that another time, but Mom took us on a drive. We were 5 kids then. My youngest sister was 5 months. And we went on a drive in our Volvo, of course,
Of course,
on Christmas Day. And we didn't know why. We were out driving for like 2 hours. And when we get back home, Dad had taken all this stuff and left. And before that, it was a lot of chaos with, as comes around with alcohol. And it changed my home because it looked a certain way, like things were gone. That was missing. Things were thrown to the side. So I walked in at home, go like, this is not my home. Like, what is this? And where did Dad go? Well, I barely saw him for a year, And he went to he kind of spiraled, and as a young boy, if you don't get attention from someone who's committed to you, you'll find different ways of getting attention, being a troublemaker, doing different things because you want to be seen. And I think I put myself in situations where I got kicked out, So I developed this mentality that I'm not going to be able to stay here long. They're not going to want me here long. They're going to find out who I am. So I carry that feeling. And, through life, there's been seasons where we've been going through some loss. We lost a child, my wife and I, between our 2 wonderful daughters that we have. I really, really wanted, be a worship leader. I had a record deal that I walked away from pastoring. And for a long time, it felt like I had to give up something, and now I just, thank God you had a different plan for me, We've been through some changes the last few years,
Talk about that for a minute, because, anybody listening probably has a little bit of an understanding of just how unstable things could seem in these last few years. How did you manage that and the loss of that?
I think one thing I realized is that getting older is not all good, but a good part of it is that you actually realize that God is preparing you for things without you understanding it. Okay. So I've practiced dealing with some things that I could use now. Obviously, we had a transition of our senior pastor, and you got to deal with all that. You're leading a church. I mean, I got to lead my own kids in it, and there's, maybe pressure, from the whole Christian world, and there's different narratives
and your own,
totally.
Sorrow and emotions of that,
and you got to work things out, and you're like, what is this new world that I just stepped into?
Yeah,
I didn't see it coming, and I think for first couple of years, for me, it was really, really hard, without putting blame on anybody, because, that there's always more to things than people would understand. And I think that's up to God. But I think for me personally, anytime you lose something significant in your life, it doesn't matter if it's a person, a pastor, a child, a job, a business, that actually affects you deeply.
Yeah.
And we cannot say, well, I'm just going to move on, which is exactly what I try to do.
Yeah.
Because I had a church to lead, I didn't take a year out and sort that out. I got to go next Sunday and go, hey, still got a world to reach. And, people are still coming and want us to raise their kids and youth and all that. And so, but I found that I had a moment that saved me in my own personal journey with this. That is really, really good. I felt like God spoke a word to me from, I think it's Psalm 45, verse 16 or 17, where it says, instead of the father shall be the sons, and they should be princes in the land. And I felt like God spoke to me, you still have everything in you that has been put into you.
Yeah.
So whether you lose a person or a business or a child, whatever God has done in you through that is still in you.
Yeah.
And I felt God challenged me, you now have to become what I've spent 50 years of trying to bring into my life, fatherhood or role models or success. So I felt that shift in my life where God actually, I think this time, the way forward and through it, of course, great friendships and talking about it, but I felt like God called me up.
Yeah.
And I said, I need you to step up. You've practiced dealing with this. You've done it before. I've been faithful before. And I could look at the track record of God being there at all times. I think it's kind of like when the people of Israel crossed the river Jordan, and God told them to build an altar on the other side. And they asked, why do we do that? And he said, so when your kids and grandkids ask about it, you can tell them this is where God was faithful. Yeah. So I realized I have altars through my life where I said, God, you were faithful there. You were faithful there. You're going to be faithful here as well.
Good.
So I think you got to recognize that it hurts, that sometimes it's confusing, whatever it is you lose. But you got to remember what God has done. He brought you this far. He's been faithful. So I could look back and say, God, you've been with me all this time. I remember our youngest daughter, she was born with a big heart condition. Her heart had a big hole in it. And we just started church. We were nothing, it's like, there's no ark in Sweden, no church planting program. When we started church, there was only two things that we were told. Number one, if you mess up, you're out. And I go, fair enough. And the second was, you're not going to get any money. If you learn to believe for what you need, you always have what you need. Right. And I actually love that now. I didn't love it then. I love it now.
Yeah.
But we had nothing. And then we had our second child and found out she had a hole in her heart. And that was kind of, that we were at the end of our energy, we lowered it, but we were just pouring you remember those, we were pouring everything.
Yeah.
We were scraping to buy a microphone. We were scraping. And now I remember my wife in that hospital room, we found out, we're kind of collapsing.
Yeah, devastating.
And we felt like, okay, this is where we give up. This is where, and we had to get down on our knees, my wife and I, in that hospital bed an hour after we found out Angelina had a big hole in her heart, with no energy, no fight back left in us. And I felt like God spoke a word, I think it is Jeremiah chapter 17, where God says, I'll pick up the pieces. I'll put them all together again. And I will always pray. And then the writer writes, God, you pick up the pieces. You put them all together again, and I will praise you.
Yeah.
So we made a choice there, Lena and I.
That's great.
We're going to praise you. This hurts, but we're going to praise you. Yeah. So different seasons, different loss. Some losses we praised our way through. Some losses we just, okay, God, you're faithful. We're going to believe you. We're going to trust you. Some losses you can just go, hey, like we've done with you and Pastor Julie, hey, we need to walk together for a little bit,
Yeah, talk about it.
And you learn that value the people that God brings into your life because they're there for a purpose. And, in being intentional in a relationship.
Yeah, if you don't have those good, solid relationships before you walk through the valley, you're in trouble, right? Because you're in the middle of the problem going, I need somebody to walk me through it. So really, I so value the relationships I have in my life because I'm pouring into them now so that when there's a need, those people are with me. They're for me. So I'm encouraging, if you're listening today and you don't have those kind of relationships to walk you through the painful places, man, get some, find some, find them in church, find them in a Bible study group. But those relationships actually ground you for what you have to walk through. Plus, I think a lot of those things we walk through, they actually make us more compassionate. Yeah. Like seasons of pain, seasons of loss, prayers that actually I found I go unanswered for a little bit and I'm like, God, they keep me on my knees. All of that makes me a better person, like towards other people and their situation. It's made me a better pastor, because I'm like, I care about people and what they're going through a little bit more because I've been through some pain myself, and I think it makes us better.
And I got to tell you, last year, your book, Don't Let Doubt Take You Out, it has been such a blessing, like just being reminded of God and His Word and the promises. And I'm a really big believer in declaring the promises of God, speaking them out loud, saying them. My wife, she prints out Bible verses and declarations. We don't need interior design because they're everywhere. You're trying to be grumpy and have a bad day.
Yeah,
you can't go to the bathroom without reading a scripture. It's just, and I believe in it. And but I think some of those seasons, I think the natural thing is to pray, God, get me out of it. Take me out of it. But I think sometimes the best thing is to actually stay in it until God actually leads you, because I think in every season there's something God is trying to do. And, I'm pretty restless and I want to move on and I just want to get out of it. But I feel like sometimes God has allowed me to be there because there's something He wanted to do in me under the surface that I don't see, that I will need to survive later on.
That's right. Yeah, it's good.
And strength for maybe success or progress, it's built in the valley.
Yeah, it is.
And the strength of the bones is built in the valley so you can sustain up on the mountains.
Yeah. You were at Christ Fellowship not that long ago and spoke to our staff. Well, it actually was a while ago. And our staff today still talk about that lesson. It was about faithfulness. It was about endurance. And you referenced the bamboo tree. Can you talk about that for a little bit? Because I think it really ties into what we're talking about today, but also just this idea of how God is going to produce more in your life than you could think or imagine.
Right. Yeah. We live in a world where every you have to be seen. Everybody's got to be their own marketing agent.
Yeah,
You got to
right.
promote yourself. You got to package yourself. And if you're not seen, you don't exist, And it's very interesting, the young generation. Having young daughters is really good because they teach me a lot. The young generation coming up, they're different. Watch them, they're 14, 15, 16. They're different than us. They're better. But I think, I like the bamboo tree. It's very interesting. I don't study a lot of biology. I just stumbled over this and I got fascinated over it. A bamboo tree, when you plant the seed, you plant it in the ground and you will not see it for 4 to 5 years, probably closer to 5 years. You will not see it.
Nothing. 5 years.
Nothing. But you will have to go out every day and water it. You'll go out every day. You got to pull out weeds so it don't weed overtake where you planted it.
Wow.
You got to fertilize it. Imagine putting a plant in your yard. I got a house and we got a yard. I got neighbors. They're all obsessed with, their gardens and stuff like that. Ours is like not as nice as theirs. But if I put that seed in there and then I go out and water it, like neighbors looking at me like, what are you doing? Like, I'm just watering my tree. There's no tree there.
Yeah.
But you do that a week, They go like, okay, it might grow, Second year, you're watering it. There's nothing. Your neighbors go like, are you crazy? Like, what are you doing? I'm just watering my tree. There's no tree there. There's nothing. You got to water it every day for 5 years. Fertilize it every day for 5 years. You got to pull weed out of that place every day for 5 years. Nothing happens. You don't see nothing. The cool thing is after about 5 years, it breaks ground. And in about 90 days, it grows, in about 5 weeks, rather, it grows 90 feet.
5 weeks.
5 weeks.
90 feet.
That's 1.5 inches a day. You can literally, if you
can
got
probably
the patience,
watch it growing.
You can sit and watch it grow. If you water it every day for 5 years, had the neighbors laugh at you, it's kind of like Noah building an ark.
Yeah, right.
If you are committed to fertilizing, committed to pull weed out, for 5 years, say nothing. I mean, I got 5 minutes in me, like 5 years. But what we don't see is during those 5 years, it grows a lot. It just grows under the surface.
Okay.
And it builds a massive root system to sustain and be able to pull out all the juice that it needs to grow that fast. If it didn't have this big root system, it could never grow 90 feet in 5 weeks. So we live in a world that celebrates the 5 weeks. I believe that God, He is way more into the 5 years.
Yeah.
And I believe God will hide us. Honestly, I felt like I've been in a season like that now. I go like, God, what are you trying? You trying to tuck me away? Like, what's going on here? Like, you could feel like relationships is disappearing, opportunities disappearing. You look at everybody else, man, they're booming. They got everybody's in their 5 weeks, and you feel like I'm in my 5 years.
Yeah.
But what I've learned is that when I think nothing is going on, you feel like God is hiding you or pushing you down. He's not. He's building roots. You just don't pay attention. So I've learned to pay attention. Okay, God, I don't see the 90 feet here in 5 weeks. So God, you must be doing something that I don't see to prepare me for what's coming. And I think a lot of us, we're in such a hurry to get out of those 5 years. Man, we pull ourselves up after 2 weeks, you know, and we never fulfill our potential. We never see everything that God has for us. And I'm learning slowly. I'm a slow learner that good things take time. And so I think most of the stuff in my life that I can look back as challenges, I can now also see it as planting. You know, I think it's Hebrews chapter 11, maybe verse 36, it talks about, it says that we don't have time to talk about all the men of faith, Noah, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes, whose weakness God turned into strength. So it doesn't say that God took away their weakness. He turned their weakness into strength. And I think this analogy of the tree, it is so, it helps me a lot. I go, okay, God, one more year. I'll stay here. I'll stay here.
Keep watering, keep fertilizing. Don't pull up the seed.
Nothing to see here. I'm just watering faith. Nothing to see. Keep moving along. Come back in 5 years. But God is faithful. He will bring you through His promises.
That's right.
Whether it's your family, your kids, your wife, your health, your dream, you just got to stay there and stay planted and keep watering it. When it feels like you're watering nothing, you're watering the promise of God. Yeah,
that's great. That's great. Last question. I ask the same last question to everybody that I interview. How has your definition of more changed as you've grown older? You're 50 now. So how's more changed?
I can't mention that I'm 55 times already in this podcast. Honestly, I felt like a shift actually happened in my life. I've heard people say, when you get there, this and this going to happen. I go like, oh yeah, whatever. And then I turned 50 and I felt like something shifted in my life. I used to be driven by wanting to accomplish things, you grow up, you got stuff to prove and you benchmark yourself. I felt like something changed in my life, my leadership when I was 50. I really find so much joy in seeing other people flourishing.
Yeah.
I believe for more for me, for my marriage, for my kids.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for guys doing my kids' life right now. But I'm really, really grateful just seeing people in our church or other people that I work with, just see their lives move.
That's
and
great.
grow and move forward. And I've never really felt that joy. I always felt like, okay, what do I need to do to, what does that do to me? Do I need to speed up? And now I go like, yeah, it is what it is. I'm 50, I'm all right.
It's God working through you. You're seeing more in other people's lives from that.
I'm loving being here, seeing what God is doing here every time I come.
Yeah.
You guys' leadership and church.
Yeah, we love you. Thanks for being with us today. It's been great.
You so much.
You've shared so much. And make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. And if you want to get any of the notes, we got them in the show notes for you. And we love you. God's got more in store than you have in mind. God bless.